Welcome back, Canonites. The July Xbox 2020 event has finally been announced for the 23rd, and as promised, here's a Q&A session to get us ready for it. It's been a while since we've done one of these, so let's dive right in. PackHunter117 asks, Q&A, why haven't the Banished ships on the Ark destroyed the Spirit of Fire? Why haven't they rescued Atriox and the others? Why haven't they stopped Yap Yap the Destroyer? Regarding the Banished at the Ark, the Spirit of Fire is simply a very capable ship. The Banished have tried to destroy her, but between her own armament and taking advantage of the Ark's defenses in one manner or another, it's been able to outmaneuver and outdo the Banished efforts so far. As for rescuing Atriox, a journey to the Ark without a portal like Halo 3 takes at least 8 months, so even if a rescue effort of some kind were underway, we wouldn't really know about it until 2560 at the earliest. With 343 keeping a lot of the post-Halo 5 timeline under wraps, we likely won't hear about anything of that sort until Halo Infinite itself, or some piece of post-Infinite release media. As for Yap Yap, why haven't they stopped him? It's cute you think he can be stopped. Skyhers asks, Q&A, I have 2 questions. 1, do you think the Created are going to be represented in Halo Infinite as another enemy faction? And 2, if so, how do you think the Created will/could be depicted in Infinite? It could really be changed up from the standard Promethean archetype if they include other races. We know of the Ungoi with their big walkers, and those concept designs of Sangheili being spliced with Forerunner tech. Would love to hear your thoughts on this great content piece. First off, thank you. Peace right back at you. Second, your questions. To number 1, I really hope the Created are represented. I don't want them to be swept under the rug. I'd like that storyline to be given a proper ending. 2, I'm hoping, at least at this point, the Created will have something of a Flood-like presence in that they appear a bit into the game to up the stakes. As for forces, I'd like to see a variety of Covenant species and Prometheans, the quote-unquote Covenant, augmented with Forerunner tech in one way or another. If I really had my way, I'd love to see human forces mixed in there, but I doubt that'll happen. Bim Bam asks, Q&A, do you think 343 will launch a complete game? I'd argue that they have launched complete titles. Honestly, I'd say Halo 4 was a complete title, so yeah, I think they're more than capable of doing so. And after a 5-year dev cycle, I would certainly hope that Infinite is complete at launch. Like, if it weren't, I'd call that unacceptable. Kyle Phantom asks, Q&A, I totally agree with you when it comes to abandoning certain story points that Halo 5 had just to make fans happy. The same thing happened with Halo 4's Spartan Ops to Halo 5 as far as I can tell, and even with Halo 2 to Halo 3. Wow, almost 3 times in a row. Anyway, my question is this, do you think the Flood should return in Halo Infinite just to satisfy fan demand? In my opinion, the Flood shouldn't, unless they are a cameo enemy like the mission in Halo 2's Oracle, or worse than they have ever been in the previous game entries, otherwise their story ended at Halo 3 for Chief. Let other heroes in the Halo universe take them on, like in Halo Wars with the Banished and the Spirit of Fire. So, I definitely don't think the Flood should appear simply to make fans happy. If anything is included in any game, or any story for that matter, it should be because of the demands of the story. If it makes fans happy and you can do some cool fan-servicey things without compromising your story, that's a bonus. You know, basically the final battle of Avengers Endgame. Tons of cool fan service moments, nothing that compromises the narrative though, at least as far as Marvel goes. That all said, I've personally been waiting for the Flood to return since about 2012 with Halo Cryptum. To quote the Primordial,
humans will rise again in arrogance and defiance. The Flood will return when they are ripe and bring them unity.
I don't know about you, but I don't feel like Halo 2 and 3 really fulfilled that promise. So I fully expect the Flood to return in force. Now all that said, I don't think the Flood should return specifically in Halo Infinite. There's a lot to potentially juggle as it is. I'd love to see the Flood teased, and then whatever comes after Infinite could reintroduce the Flood, bigger and badder than ever. Infinite is the foundation of the next 10 years of Halo experiences, and in that time I hope to see the Flood return, test humanity, and for humanity to rise against the mantle or something. Like, that's what I think should happen. They should reject it. But anyway, I think the Flood should return, just not necessarily in Infinite itself, or in its core campaign. There's been rumors of post-release DLC. If that were to happen, cool. Wolfbane16 asks, Q&A. Can you give a list of fears that you have for Halo Infinite, and please spare no details? Spare no details, huh? Well, here's some that come to mind. My top fear is that Cortana will be cured, or a new Cortana will be made that's functionally identical to the old Cortana, returning Halo to the old status quo of Chief and his blue AI lady. I worry that 343 will return the Chief to something more like the shell character he was in Halo 2 especially, but the original trilogy in general. I loved 343's interpretation of him in Halo 4, much more in line with the Chief from the books, which is the Chief I grew up with primarily. I never really liked how silent he was during gameplay. It felt unnatural and took me out of the game more often than not. I love how responsive he became in Halo 4 and 5. I want to keep that. I worry that Blue Team will just be gone for no reason, though the cover of Shadows of Reach has certainly alleviated that to a degree. I worry that the Banished are being included only because, quote-unquote, they're cool and not necessarily because it's a good story decision. I worry that the created threat will be resolved off-screen, essentially pulling another Halo 5 situation. I worry in general about how much longer Halo will be Chief-centric in the games because the universe is so much bigger than just him. I worry that the conflict at the Ark will be resolved off-screen and that Halo Wars 3 will never happen, at least not as I want it to happen. Hopefully a lot of, if not all of my fears will be alleviated in the final game, but until then, or until I have reason to reconsider, those are the ones at the top of my mind, at least that I can think of right now. Belfast, fantastic city, asks, Q&A, who would you rather see make a return in Halo Infinite? Halfjaw, June, Fireteam Majestic, or Alpha 9? Sorry, I forgot to mention Admiral Hood. So of those options, I'd probably choose Lord Hood or Urtas, aka the Halfjaw. No disrespect to the other characters and teams listed, but I think Urtas or Hood would be best served to the situation we find the Chief in Halo Infinite, at least as we currently understand things. That said, I'd love more content involving Majestic and Alpha 9, and in either case, bring June in, given his position with the Spartan branch. That just seems perfect. Jedi38 asks, Q&A, do you think we'll ever get more content on the versions/members of Noble Team that existed prior to Halo Reach? I really hope so, but I stopped holding my breath years ago at this point. I'll always keep advocating for it at every opportunity, and maybe I should make a video on that someday. But will it happen? I'm not so certain. If it did though, I think my favorite idea for Noble Team content would be a 6-part anthology comic, with each issue focusing on a member of Noble Team from Halo Reach at different times during the war. Part 6 of course would be dedicated to Tom A293 and the Battle of Fumarole, his sacrifice, and the recruitment of Spartan B312. But that's just one idea I've had in my head. Kaiju Cobalt asks, great video as always, thank you. For the Q&A, my question is, for someone who hasn't gotten around to reading the Forerunner saga yet, how did the Precursors become the Flood, and is that their final form? Also not really a question, but given how much time has supposedly passed between 5 and Infinite, I wonder if it's possible that the brazen defiance for which the Banished seem to want to burn humanity is something that hasn't happened yet as of the end of Halo Wars 2, maybe even something that happens in Shadows of Reach? Either way, can't wait to find out where the story goes. I'll agree to that last part for sure. So regarding the Flood, that's a big answer, but I'll try to give you the Cliff Notes. Basically, billions of years ago, the Precursors seeded life in the Milky Way and watched as species emerged and evolved, eventually testing some for the right to hold the mantle of responsibility, guardianship of life in the galaxy. Eventually, the Forerunners were measured, weighed, and found wanting, and they struck back at the Precursors. As the Forerunners hunted the Precursors to extinction, some locked themselves away in stasis, most reduced themselves to a powder that could be reconstituted in the future, and others escaped elsewhere beyond the reach of the Forerunners. Millions of years later, the powder was found by the ancient human Sanshayum Empire, and they experimented with it, finding it only seemed to make a favorite pet of both species, Feru, act more docile, otherwise it seemed inert. This powder was fed to the Feru and over centuries resulted in the first emergence of what would become the Flood. It made the Feru more aggressive, reshaped them, and started spreading to humans in Sanshayum, then other species, growing more and more powerful and intelligent. Eventually, this forced the humans in Sanshayum into Forerunner space, causing a conflict with them. The Forerunners won, just as humanity seemingly fought off the Flood. Humanity was then devolved to a more primitive state, the Sanshayum were quarantined to their home system, and the Forerunners began preparing for the return of the Flood. And yeah, that's the short version. There's no real final form of the Precursors, they've taken on many, and those that survived, will probably take on many more, but the Flood is a form of the Precursors. Regarding the Banished and their claims of a brazen defiance though, I think we'll most likely learn what that is in Halo Infinite, but Shadows of Reach could certainly have hints about that if not more. It's likely something the players largely won't have context for until Infinite though. That's my opinion anyway. Ultimate Knight asks, Q&A. Would like a co-op partner or AI similar to what Halo 3 did with the Arbiter, with him being in certain points in the game, or with him being with you all the time? I wouldn't mind something like Halo 3's co-op system, although I think the co-op characters should actually be a person's multiplayer Spartan. I loved that aspect of Halo Reach and I would love to see it return. Just literally anything other than Chief clones. Please don't be bringing back Chief clones. Toast Ghost asks, Q&A. What's the best year of Bionicle and why is it 2007? I'm not sure what you're talking about, man. The best year of Bionicle was 2004. That's just a fact.
You are so misguided.
Lifeworker Construct asks, Q&A. What's your favorite part of the Forerunner saga? Basically the entirety of Silentium. The book is so lore and story heavy and does an amazing job of conveying just how hectic the final years and days of the Forerunner Flood War were. I never really felt that sort of escalating tension from the written word before. It's amazing. Brandon Sorum asks, Q&A. Do you think Fireteam Osiris and Locke will have any role within Halo Infinite? I also fear about the created being thrown to the wayside, and I fear the exact same thing about Locke and Osiris. They deserve a second chance, and they were such an integral component of Halo 5's story that it would be very weird to not even at least acknowledge them in some way. As a passionate Halo fan dying to know more about what happened after Halo 5 and Halo Wars 2, I fear that much of the narratives within these games will be thrown away in favor of a spiritual reboot and simpler story. Regardless though, I love your videos as always. Thank you. Anyway, I think if Locke or Osiris at large is present, it'll be in a very limited capacity. Honestly, I don't expect them to be featured much, if at all. That said, there's a lot of speculation about the possibility of post-launch DLC, story DLC actually, and I'd love to see Osiris be given another chance in that form. They are grossly underrated by the vocal fanbase, undeservedly so in my opinion. Too often, I get the feeling that people let their expectations of Halo 5 color their perception of Osiris as characters. I don't know that that's true, that's just a feeling I get. Regardless, they deserve another chance. All Daddy asks, Q&A. Why didn't 343 Guilty Spark shoot down the Covenant ships around Installation 04 when the Pillar of Autumn was approaching? This is a good question, and it's one that's bothered me for a while. Back in 2004, the Halo 2 limited edition included a bonus called Conversations from the Universe, and among those conversations was a log of Guilty Spark's actions during Halo CE. The first entry deals with him detecting the Covenant, and he's pretty indifferent to their presence.
Aeons of inactivity and perfect stability. Then everything happens all at once. A primitive, homogenizing swarm calling itself the Covenant has landed on Installation 4, apparently seeking something specific. Exploring, meddling. I have seen it all before. They'll record what they see, and then they'll leave.
Now granted, this is seemingly after they landed, but it still seems rather odd given his initial attitude towards the Pillar of Autumn. Maybe Spark didn't detect them because they hid on the far side of Threshold, or maybe something about the Covenant's tech being based on Forerunner tech allowed them to hide themselves. I wish I had a better answer for you, but yeah, it's something that bugs me to this day too. Phipps Movies Productions asks, Q&A. What would 343 have to do in Halo Infinite for you to completely lose faith in them? Basically fully revert to Chief being a shell and Cortana being his AI buddy again. If by the end of the game the Chief and Cortana are back together, that's not necessarily game over for me, but that would be a serious blow to any of my faith in the franchise, let alone 343 themselves. I'm going to butcher this one, but Harsh Prajapati asks, Q&A. Is it possible that Atriox is dead or injured after the whole Shadows of Reach episode with Master Chief book? Maybe that's why the Banished are angry at humanity, as Chief must have done something pretty bad to Atriox. It's certainly possible, though I don't think Atriox himself will appear in Shadows of Reach. I do get the impression that the Banished, or more specifically Hyperius, thinks Atriox is dead and blames humanity. Thomas Clauser asks, Q&A, what armors do you want to see return from Halo 4 and 5? There are some really good armors, but I think they get overshadowed by those crap armors like Seeker. And it feels kind of dumb to throw away everything from the new art style. I absolutely agree. There are definitely some great armors in Halo 4 and 5. Someone actually just asked about this on Twitter, and I really hope my choices aren't too different from what I said there, but obviously I get to flesh them out a lot more in a video, so here we go. Recruit, Warrior, Noble, Atlas, Copperhead, Defender, Hellcat, Prefect, and the Rogue armor sets should absolutely all return. The Cypher, Deadeye, Enforcer, Locust, Operator, Scanner, and Strider helmets should return as well. Speaking of which, I'd love the option to remove the scope device from the Scanner helmet, as even just the regular helmet looks pretty cool, at least in concept. And then specifically the Gen 2 versions of Air Assault, Scout, and Security. These are designs I feel 343 really improved on, especially Scout. I never liked the Halo 3 Scout armor, especially the helmet. Reach had a much better take on the helmet, and while it remains my favorite version, 343's take on the Scout armor overall is top notch. The Security armor too is a great improvement over Reach's take. And also basically all the leg and forearm armors from Halo 4, 343 absolutely nailed those in my opinion. Waterchain8, the Honest Gamer asks, Q&A, hey, love your videos, thank you. Especially your book reviews, you are actually the reason I've read many of the books I have, many of which have been Halo. I'm sure you're happy to hear. Honestly man, just read what you like. Anyway, my question actually regards those reviews, as I was wondering about the potential of more flashback reviews or even just normal ones, as there have been a few Halo books I was disappointed to see you skip over, such as Troy Denning's sequel to Last Light. Thanks again, keep up the videos, and sorry for the length and potential grammar/spelling issues, I'm dyslexic, though I know this is no excuse. Dyslexia is an absolute excuse. I suffer from a bit of it, my sister has it, so don't worry man, and you did wonderfully. Question came through loud and clear. Anyway, I'd definitely love to do more flashback reviews. The only issue I have with those is they're very time consuming. Like a month and a half or 2 months more or less. And that's honestly the case for book reviews as a whole. This is why it's taken me so long to do Retribution and Legacy of Onyx. Those both came out at a time when I was going through some stuff in real life, and to put it simply, I didn't have the motivation to read those books, let alone review them. Like, I only finished reading them last year. It took me 2 years to finally read them both. So I really do want to get reviews on them out, Legacy of Onyx especially, as I feel it has an undeservedly bad reputation in this community. But it probably ain't happening this year just because of so much going on. Hopefully, but don't hold your breath. Ultimate Knight asks, Q&A, why did 343 use the modified Halo 4 engine for Halo 2 Anniversary multiplayer instead of the Anniversary engine for the campaign? So, disclaimer to start off, I'm not a game developer, let alone anyone who actually worked on H2A, but my primary guess would come down to the campaign engine just not being developed with a multiplayer suite in mind. The thing is designed to run atop the original Halo 2 engine, and that's basically it. Anything more would require more time and more development. On the other hand, you have the Halo 4 engine, which just requires a few tweaks to things here and there, and you have a pretty accurate approximation of Halo 2. For what I recall to be an 18-month development cycle, that's a huge load of work off a developer's shoulders. So, there you go. Endeavor Tabarsi asks, Q&A, I know the first teaser for Halo Infinite said Zeta in Morse code, but are we sure Halo Infinite takes place on Zeta Halo and not Installation 09? Are we 100% sure? No, however all the signs point to Zeta Halo. There's the Morse code for one thing, and in the 2019 trailer on the pilot's screen you can actually see Rally Point Zeta along the bottom, which again points to the ring being Zeta Halo. There are certainly other ways this stuff could be explained, plans could change, but at the moment the easiest answer is simply we're on Zeta Halo. Zevi asks, Q&A, we know that fragments/physical components of Mendicant Bias exist on the Ark and possibly Zeta Halo, but do we know anything about where Offensive Bias is or if he even still exists? Sadly, no. Back during Halo Escalation's run, we actually did meet another contender class Ancilla, the one at the absolute record, and many, myself included, were theorizing that it could be Offensive Bias, but that never came to pass. The last record of Offensive Bias we have is him capturing Mendicant and sending him over to the Ark as detailed in Halo 3's terminals. I hope we get more someday, but I'm not holding my breath. Although, fun fact, his icon appears alongside the Didact and Librarians on the refractive skin for the Suppressor in Halo 4. Doesn't really mean anything, but, cool little extra Easter egg. And finally, Young Rubber Duck asks Q&A, what do you think are the odds that the Spirit of Fire will be in Halo Infinite and a part of the storyline? Also, would you like that sort of thing? So I'll answer these in reverse, and you can probably guess based on a previous answer how I feel. No, I would not like the Spirit of Fire to appear in Halo Infinite. I really want to finish the fight at the Ark ourselves, not have it resolved off-screen or even in some other media so that the Spirit can appear in Halo Infinite or some future titles or something. As for the odds of the Spirit appearing though, I'm not holding my breath, but equally I wouldn't be surprised if it does. And that, I think, is where we'll wrap up this Q&A session. These are a ton of fun, I've honestly forgot, and with any luck, I'll get around to doing more in the future. Certainly one right after the July event, as I'm sure there will be questions abound. But for now, thank you for watching, this has been Halo Canon, and I'll see y'all next time. Thanks for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please consider subscribing, and if you really love me, hit that notification bell and leave a thumbs up. These both really help out the channel. I wouldn't be where I am now without your views and support, so once again, thank you. Keep on being awesome, Canonites.